Okay, well, I had no luck. It's streaming. I can see it. It's supposed to be picked up on Facebook. It's not. I tested this 3 different times and it worked great. So since it's not working right now, what I thought I would do is just open it up and try to answer any questions that any folks have, because I know I didn't get to even scratch the surface of the ones from Sunday night. And for those of you who are here on Facebook and maybe weren't tuned in on Sunday, you maybe don't know what to ask questions about because you didn't get to see the Secret Sunday kind of overview. So from whatever questions you may have, just off the top of your head, I will spend like the next 10 minutes or so answering them. And then I am just so frustrated that I didn't get this up, but I'm going to figure this out. I'm determined. I won't get it figured out tonight, but at least I won't keep you all up too late, because I know you're struggling to make it through the end of the week with the holidays in the classroom right now. So I feel your pain. So anyway, I do see some folks kind of joining in. I got so many great questions on Sunday, and apparently on YouTube Live, the interaction in the chats aren't stored in the comments. So whereas I had planned to go back and interact and try to answer some of those questions, especially on that first run, I wasn't able to do it. I just did a cut and paste of the chat. So I do have some of them that I remember, and I'm going to try to hit some of those, but I would really like to answer whatever you might be awake enough to ask right now. And again, not having seen the video from Sunday, where we really talked about everything as far as where you can go with secrets in your classroom and the freedom that you should see when you have access to all of the code at such an accelerated pace from the earliest possible grade level. And then the questions that come along with adopting that new mindset, because it really is a paradigm shift. You know, that freedom's not something that as teachers we're used to having. We're used to doing what it says to do on week 1 and month 2. And we're used to really pulling our hair out just getting that far. So having access to more of the code earlier on and using the brain science as a map to get there is a completely new paradigm shift, and comes with a lot of questions. So some of the great ones that I got, and I see a lot of folks that have joined in, but I would really love to hopefully touch on some of the questions that were asked and then answer any other ones that you have. There were some of the questions that I got were about what to do at the earliest grade levels and if that looked any different than what you do at the upper grade levels. And that was a really good one, I think, because that's something teachers just automatically think about, which is, well, if I'm in kindergarten, I should be doing something completely different than what first grade might be doing. And although our kids are completely changing from one grade level to another at those earliest grade levels, the secrets don't change. The code doesn't change. So what kids need to read and write doesn't change. Charlie still needs to be able to write Charlie, and ideally as a pattern making machine, which is what the brain is, he's going to want what he needs to do it with. And then ideally, if he owns that tool, if he owns, let's say, that CH secret, then he's got that secret to apply to hundreds of other words that he's going to see. And while that may seem like a leap when you're used to just having little Charlie who's 5 and doesn't even know he's Charlie, how to memorize writing his name, it's not a leap. Kids are incredibly capable of doing things far earlier than we would think. The difference is developmental readiness does not shift or change. Charlie may have a shoe in his mouth, and Charlie may be asleep by 10:30 every morning. Charlie may not truly know he's Charlie, and that's okay, because the secrets aren't about combating that. It's not about fighting a child where he is. It's about if you can't beat him, join him. Going through that back door where Charlie's got those higher levels of capability, those social emotional channels, those areas that drive his behavior and his decision making every day. Not necessarily good behavior, but behavior nonetheless. And I'm talking behavior like I'm at the end of a line and I know I am going to be able to get away with a lot more back here than when I'm at the front and all eyes are on me. Those same decision-making frameworks are what the secrets tap into to give early grade learners a leg up on text, or struggling upper grade learners a leg up on text, because upper grade struggling learners don't have a lot of time on text. So they don't have a lot under their belt. Often they have years less than they should have from having avoided text for so long. So they have a strong parallel with kids who also have very little experience with text, who are our earliest grade learners. But the whole goal is that this back door to the brain is 100 feet wide and 200 feet tall, and it's even got suction. So if you can just pique the curiosity enough and trigger that need to know, then they get sucked right in before they've even tried to figure out what's going on. And what this is called in the research is non-conscious learning. And there are a lot of ways to trigger it, and there are a lot of brain-based tenets that it's built on. But it sounds really complex. It's actually the simplest, easiest thing you can do. You're just working with the brain instead of against it. Now, I hadn't planned to talk about this part, so I'm going to go ahead and try to again answer the question I mentioned and then look for more. I see a lot of folks joining, but please ask me any questions you want live, because I hate to just go back to the questions that I recall from the Sunday talk, because then that's not interactive. And my plan tonight was to play that talk so I could be fully interactive tonight, and of course that completely backfired. So while you're thinking of your questions, I'm going to just again hit that first one that I mentioned. For kindergarten, toss things out when they need them. Marilyn Yeager, who's an amazing, just an incredible woman, actually, with a tremendous background in not just the research and the neuroscience, but also the hands-on core work in the classroom, specifically with early grade levels. She kind of mirrors something that Dick Allington says, who actually has a very different framework of thought and philosophy, but their whole focus is 3 to 4 years is too long to wait for the whole code. And if you teach in kindergarten and you're trying to be very sequential with your instruction, Halloween's going to roll around. And if you're doing a letter of the week, or even if you're doing more than a letter of the week, Halloween's going to happen in October. Kids are going to need whatever parts of the code they need to read and write about what they're going to be for Halloween, what they're going to do for Halloween. And probably if letter of the week is what's happening, A through F or G is just not going to cut it. Even if you're tossing out, maybe a blend, or you're following some sort of a phonics piece and it's not letter of the week, they're still going to need more than those individual letters to put things together in the books and in the writing that they're going to want to kind of play with in the classroom. And it can be so simple and just happen throughout the course of the day. When Charlie's trying to write Charlie, and again, I mentioned Tara Settle's blog in the last post, but when your Wonders lesson or your Journeys lesson in week 2 in first grade has you reading Curious George, got 17 words, according to something that I know Miss Settle mentioned in her blog post, which you can see on the Secret Stories website. I think it's the second to the last one that was posted. 17 words in that week 2 reader that kids cannot read without at least 4 secrets. And those 4 secrets don't just apply to those 17 words in Curious George. Speaking of which, the title, Curious and George, you've got the OUS, you've got the ERIOUR, you've got the CECSCY. So it not only applies to that title and those 17 words, but to the next week's story and the next week's story and the next week's story. And probably to 100 other things that kids are going to see as they're working with text throughout the day. Now, your alternative is memorize the 17 words, sight words. Memorize those words. Put all the time and the energy and the blood, sweat, and tears into teaching the reading and not the reader. And then hope that the kids are going to be practicing and having access to that book at home, and parents that are going to practice it, and that it's not going to get lost over the holiday. All those variables we can't control. But when you teach the reader instead of the reading, instead of memorizing 17 words that are going to come and go with this story, work for secrets that are going to give them hundreds of words that are going to apply to this story and every other story thereafter. And it's just a story. You're already telling stories in the classroom. Tell a secret story. You're already singing songs. Sing the Better Alphabet song. So it's not anything extra. You don't need to carve out 30 minutes for it. It's always there. Secrets are always there. They're always running. They're always in the background. They're always teaching. They're always being pulled and plugged and used and played with. They're just a constant key that you have to unlock the text that kids are struggling to make sense of every day. And this is the last thing I'll say, and then I'm going to go back and look for those questions so I can be more interactive with you now. Then I said that was the last thing I was going to say. Now I forgot what the first thing was, or whatever it was I was going to say. Okay, well, it's gone, so I'll go ahead and hit the questions. There was something I was going to say about what I was heading for, but I have lost whatever it was. So anyway, I'm going to take a peek at these and see if I have specific ones here. Do you ever run promotions? I wanted to start using these secret stories in my classroom. And then it says, is there a way to start it a little by little? Absolutely. There's so much online. I mean, toss out any of the secrets that you see on this Facebook page. I've been posting some different ones here and there. There's a ton of them on the blog. You'll see several in the posts by, I think the last few posts were by Amy and Tara, and then there were some through by an Orton Gillingham, a great teacher that focuses and is not just doesn't just work with Orton Gillingham specifically, but incorporates that into her work with kids that have dyslexia. You'll see so many examples of secrets, not just what they look like as a graphic, but how to play with them. Mama E and babysitter vowels give kids access to high leverage phonics skills that a lot of kids don't get until they're in 3rd, 4th grade, because in the front door world, they're tricky and they're complex and they're abstract skills. Being able to know in a multisyllabic word what the trigger is that makes a vowel go long or short. You know, the front door version of that is vowel, consonant, vowel, vowel, consonant, consonant, vowel, open syllable, closed syllable, long, short. Very complex for kids to master when they aren't ready at the early grades or don't have the understanding and they're struggling with reading at the upper grades. So much easier to explain that if mommy is 1 letter away from another vowel, she will tell that vowel, you say your name, and by darn it, you will, because she's close enough with her little 3-inch arms to get a hold of that letter and make him say his name. Now, sometimes mommy can't take it anymore. She's just got to get out of the house. And when she's got to go, she just simply puts a babysitter vowel in charge. So boys and girls, if you see any vowel that's 1 letter away from another vowel, it's just the babysitter. It's going to do exactly what mom would if she were there. It's going to tell any vowel that's 1 letter away, you say your name. So if you have a word like making, motor, hibernate, any word you can think of, it gives kids the best betting odds for Las Vegas about what sound to try for the vowel. Should it be long? Should it be short? Which should I try first? If you spend kindergarten teaching kids their long and short vowel sounds, but they never get the trigger to let them know which way to go when they see a vowel in a word, then they have the light bright, but they can't plug it in and power it up. And if you're under 40, you have no idea what a light bright is, but it would be a toy that you might want to get at Christmas, but you can't use it unless you can plug it in. And I see the vowels like that. You know, we'll spend all year long in kindergarten and first fine-tuning those vowel sounds, ah. But without giving kids the method to the madness, the best betting odds for Las Vegas about which way they're going to go in any word they see. Not just nice, neat little words that end with an E. Magic E is great, but there's only so much mileage there because not every word ends with a nice, neat little E. We've got multisyllabic words in high-level text that 4th graders are struggling to plow through because they don't have any idea whether a vowel is going to be long or short. It is a random crapshoot. If a 5-year-old can look and see if mom is there or if there's a babysitter nearby and then know whether they can get away with being short and lazy or not, there's no reason that our struggling upper grade learners should have to go through the front door to grab that skill. So anyway, things like that. Look for what gives kids the most bang for their buck. Charlie's going to need that CH. A kid that's going to write about his mouse that he just bought over the weekend is probably going to need that OU. So grab what you need to give kids what they want and then model. Because your whole group instruction is you showing them how great this key works to get in that door. And that was a big topic of Sunday as well. And I'm still looking at questions as they come in. But that was a big topic of Sunday's talk as well, was the buffet. Because the buffet is a whole different world from waitressing skills. When we waitress skills and we waitress out the code and it takes 3 to 4 grade level years to get the whole code, that is a very long time to wait for what kids need to be able to read and write. You know, they're reading, writing across the day, starting in kindergarten. So the question is, with what? What do they have to read and write with? Individual letter sounds and 10 sight words? Can't write about your pet mouse with that. As a matter of fact, and I love saying this, but the highest kid in your little class can look up at the alphabet train all day long in kinder or in first, and he's never going to find the letter that says ow if he wants to write or read about his pet mouse. And that is a shame because it won't be introduced until the scope and sequence introduces it in 2nd grade and in your typical reading series. And the problem is his mouse will likely be dead by then, which is probably going to hold a lot less interest for him in terms of wanting to write about it. He wants to write about it right now. I actually was speaking with a district person today, and I'll say this just because I see another question come in, but this goes along with the first. And she said, can you just make a scope and sequence for us? Because we really are, we need to have a scope and sequence, or at least we'd like to have one, just because that way we can kind of, gauge where we're supposed to go. And a scope and sequence, there is a scope and sequence for the secret stories, but you determine it with the needs of your students with most bang for the buck first. So the scope and sequence would lay out with the better alphabet song first. If you're in an early grade, kids need access to those individual letters and sounds. And the better alphabet song, which you can also find if you type it into the search box on the blog on Secret Stories or thesecretstories.com, or the website that you'll see in this Facebook page. You can get to it. You'll be able to see it, watch it, hear it. It's easy to do. It's fast. Takes 2 weeks to 2 months for kids to get every single individual letter and sound, they are done. And I don't mean like they'll think just C says k. They'll know it can say k and s in the most likely order, which is k first, then s. They'll know everything a Y can say. They'll know the QU sound. It's nooks and crannies of every possible thing a letter can do by itself. Not what happens when letters come together with other letters, because that's when other behaviors emerge, which we call secrets. But the individual letters and sounds are knocked out with muscle memory. It goes with the better alphabet. So it goes through muscle memory, bypasses higher level processing. Kids can lick the carpet and have their shoe in their mouth, and they can still capture every single individual letter and sound in the 2-week to 2-month time frame. And while that's happening, simultaneously, you're tossing out secrets, because the secrets are only as powerful as the individual letters, and the individual letters are only as powerful as the secrets when it comes to putting words together and taking them apart. You know, Charlie's going to need more than the CH. That L is critical for Charlie, but not without the CH. So for writing Charlie. So the idea is that they power each other up, and the brain is a multiprocessor. It's a pattern making machine, and having access to tools that make things make sense is the modus operandi for learning. Making things make sense. And the beauty of that is you're following the brain science, and the brain science is pretty well laid out in terms of streamlining our path to really accelerate access with the code and change what we think we know about what we do to what we actually can do with what we now know. And it just changes it from a rat race to a completely pleasurable, maximum instructional density, reading and writing kind of surprise every day in our classroom. Now, as far as some of these other questions, and my scrolling is slow, so I'm getting kind of behind here. But as far as promotions go, they don't offer promotions. And I know the kit is $100. I think the cheapest one is $90 and the most expensive one's $105. Those prices actually that has gone up $10 since 2002. Now, it's changed a lot with the brain science, and things are still changing, because the more we know, the more you want to tweak and prune and expand, and again, just keep tightening that path. But all of that to say that the cost is kept at that price. It's kept low, so that teachers don't have to wait for district initiatives to jump in and start playing with what they do. It's not a program. Doesn't matter what your reading series is. Doesn't matter what your phonics program is. It's really irrelevant. All the secrets do is put meaning where there otherwise wouldn't be, so that you can tear down those grade level walls that limit or delay learner access to the code. You know, learners, kids in kinder are reading and writing across the entire instructional day. So simply ask yourself, with what? What do my kids have to read and write with? And how deep can they get into the nooks and crannies of these rich literacy experiences that you're planning every day if they've only got 5 letters and 2 sight words? You know, it's a going through the motions activity instead of a maximum instructional density opportunity. So the more of the code they have, 1 more piece today than yesterday, 3 more pieces this week than they had last week. Dick Allington says it best. We do a keynote series. We've spoken in different cities across the US and Canada at something called the Vulnerable Readers Summit. It's over now, summits. But in this, one of his quotes, and I think it nails it, is, you know, 3 to 4 years, 3 to 4 grade level years is just too long to make learners wait, to make kids wait, to make anyone wait for the whole code, especially if you're going to be engaging and using it from day one. So by default, if kids are going to be doing it, kids need something to do it with. And experience is the best teacher. So the more they do and the more they have to do it with, the more they get out of that opportunity. More tools you bring to the table, more value take away. So the prices haven't changed. I don't know how I got there from prices. Again, I wasn't expecting to do this today. And I actually had a little bit of a pear nighttime drink before. So anyway, but I think I'm going to be clear. The prices haven't changed. They're kept that way so teachers can afford to jump in and do it on their own. And districts can certainly do the same, but we want to make sure it's always affordable for teachers. But it is tricky with the book and the posters and the CD to bundle it all together for any less. There's no margin in the cost, and so they don't do promotions because there's no flexibility. Because it is intentionally kept affordable for teachers. Okay, I'm way behind here. I'm sorry. Glad to be back to the live video. Me too. As far as the resources go, teaching the students all the secrets, I have them posted on the wall. Getting them to write can be challenging. Yeah, I have only 20 minutes and I want to sing the ABC song. Any tips? Well, I mean, obviously this is a work in progress. You've got the buffet, which is you tossing out a secret. You're not a waitress, so you're not waiting for that moment, that the book tells you or that the scope and sequence tells you to teach it. And I think that was that point I had forgotten about, the grade level walls of what's taught when. That's if you're a waitress. On a buffet, there's no expectation. You can lay out that CH for Charlie and talk about that in whole group when you tell the story. You're not going to assess it and test Charlie and the rest of the kids on it. You're just putting that out and hoping that that looks tasty, not just to Charlie, but to some other kids who might have something that they want to read or write where they see that exact culprit making that sound in that word. And they can access that visual, see the sound, and then use it as a tool to read and write. Your question about writing here, it's a process. So writing is obviously harder than reading. And I mentioned Jen Jones, but in the Facebook Live video, but I did not mention her, in the YouTube Live video. I did not mention her in the Facebook Live talk because obviously I wasn't planning on being on video tonight. But Jen Jones is Hello Literacy. I mentioned her name. I didn't say what she did. Hello Literacy is her name online, and she said something that kind of mirrored what I say, but I liked hers better. And that was that, if writing is breathing in, reading is breathing out. I think it was actually the reverse of that, but you get the idea. I would say reading is writing, or writing is reading backwards. They're one and the same. What you put together, you take apart. Writing, though, is that next step up, because kids not just have to identify the sound symbol relationship, but then they have to use their little hand to get it down. There is a resource called Zookeepers and M&M quizzes. And when kids know the secrets, but you're not seeing it transfer into the writing, because, at the end of the day, that's the only reason we teach phonics. It's the only reason we teach letters. So kids can transfer those skills to reading, transfer them to writing. We don't care that they're good vowel makers or that they know their 45 sight words. What we care about is that the phonics skills, the ability to work with the code, has a place to go and can be used for reading and writing. So to make that transfer smoother and easier, this Zookeeper M&M quizzes, it's a trick that hits their weak spot. Kids' weak spot in the early grade levels often is that if they put HS for the word house, and you think it says house, and they know it says house, and you say, oh, this is so good, you say, I like my house. And what it really says is ILKMHS. Now, we're great cheerleaders for early grade learners because we know how many things they don't know. So if we see anything kind of looking familiar, we give them a huge, hurrah. And that's great that we do that. The thing is they don't understand, like upper grade kids do, who might get a score on a test, that there's good, better, best. All they know is, okay, so it says house, I know it says house, good, I'm done, I'm gonna go play. Now, why would they write more? For instance, let's say they know the ow sound. They know O-U-O-W. And I've had this happen so many times where they'll have HS. I'll say, do you know what sound you hear in the word house? House. Oh, ow, ow. Oh, yeah, O-U-O-W. Okay, so where is it? It's right up there. Okay, so then how come you just put HS? And their answer is usually, now, in kids speak, what that usually means is, I know it said house, you know it says house. What's the point? Why add more letters if everybody already knows that this is house? And we do the same thing when we text. Because when we're on the phone and we want to say, I will see you in a bit, we just put you. Because why should we put more? It already is clear what it is that we're saying. So it makes sense that they think this. So the M&M and Zookeepers, it's basically a little trick about if you're a zookeeper and all of your animals escape. And you've got to get out there and you've got to catch them. But, you're probably not going to be able to catch every single animal. So you just got to get out and catch as many as you possibly can if you want to have any kind of a zoo for anybody to visit. Now, same thing when you write a word. You're probably not going to catch every single sound or letter in the word. But you've got to get out there and try to capture at least as many as you possibly can hear to have any kind of a word that someone can read. So in a word like ow, you want to encourage them to capture as many sounds as they can. Now, to make sure they do, you have something called M&M quizzes. And M&M quizzes are where they can earn an M&M for every single letter or secret, every sound that they can capture in a word that you give them. So I'll usually pick a really long word like fantastic, and I'll say, okay, so gosh, some of you, let's see, fantastic. If you guys can capture all the sounds in that word, oh my gosh, some of you might get 7 or 8 M&Ms. I don't really know offhand how many letters there are in fantastic. Anyway, you'll never see kids work harder to get in the nooks and crannies of a word than when there's an M&M at stake. They'll be going, it's hysterical to watch them work so hard. But if there's a sound that they can hear, by darn it, they're going to get it down because that's one more M&M that they could get. And they'd much rather have 8 M&Ms than 2 M&Ms. But for the kids who can only hear maybe the sound or the sound, that's fine. They still got 2 M&Ms. That's awesome. But the good part is it's a valid assessment, probably the most valid assessment you will ever give, because there's an M&M at stake. So if they got it, you'll get it. And that's a great tool. You can download it free. And if you type in Zookeeper or M&M into the blog search box on that Secret Stories website, you will it'll pull up the post with that link and you can get right to it. And I think you can also find it by typing the search in on YouTube. Just type in Secret Stories Zookeeper. And then it's a download on Teacher Pay Teacher, so you'll be able to find it. I can even put it into the comments of this actually once I am finished up here. So that's a great question, because you'll see the reading really zoom, and then you'll see the writing not representing what the kids are obviously able to use with the reading as far as the secrets go. Okay, kinders are decoding 2-syllable words, no problem. Secrets are engaging and amazing. Yay! I mean, it is funny to see how things twist and turn. You know, I mean, we're so used to working along the lines of just accepting that, you know, there's so much kids don't have at the earliest grade levels, and we have to work around the stuff they don't have. And that's where the sight words actually come in strong, is the sight words are what we have to memorize to get around the fact that they don't have so much of the code and won't get it for another 2 years. So it really is just a commonplace outcome that when you give them that access and you slip it through the back door, they're going to be able to do things you never even dreamed kids would be able to do. Even the kids who barely can find their way to the sink are going to be popping out these secrets. Now, they may not connect them right away to their purpose. They'll be like Superman when he's got powers and he can break a glass, but he doesn't know what it's for. He doesn't know that he's got that power or what it translates to. But the key is they didn't start the race late. You're giving them access and front loading all of this in the form of these harmless, totally developmentally, perfectly appropriate secrets. And when those dots connect and you've modeled for the 50th time how, you know, that word on the board is, or the calendar's August, when he gets, oh, I get it, the letters that are in the word August, they're the letters that are in love. I get it, because there's a picture of AUAW and they have this huge crush on each other, and you know, they're head over heels, and anytime they have to stand right up against each other in a word, they get so embarrassed they put their heads down and say ah. So for a while that may just be a secret that kids like to dramatize and play. Not for most kids, but you know, most kids will start applying it, because even if they can't read the rest of the word and don't even know the rest of the letters, they'll be pointing to AUs everywhere they see them and AWs and going, ah. But for kids who are starting to get more of those letters and starting to put things together, that's when they start to just take off. And you really, as the teacher, you're just along for the ride. You don't even get to pick what you get to share next, because the kids are accelerating the pace of that. You know, I mentioned that scope and sequence. Your scope and sequence is accelerated so drastically that you don't realize you have it anymore. And it's really geared toward what makes the most sense, what kids need the most, those high leverage phonics skills to get the most bang for the buck and do the most in your daily work. So I love to see that. Thank you, Larissa, about the 2-syllable words. And you'll see a lot of that on the blogs too. You'll see those little guys doing things that they should never be able to do based on what the scope and sequence for each of the grade levels has down for what's to be introduced. That's actually an entire section on the Secret Stories website. It's called Not More, Just Better. And you can look at all the different reading series, and then off to the side see kids that are 2 years younger from inner city schools doing what they're not even supposed to have access to for 2 more years, and they're doing it as if they could teach it. So the question is, of course, why wait? And then, of course, sight words start to look very differently, because you never want to memorize what you can just read, ever. Stanford University did probably one of the most prominent brain studies on sight words, and the end result was never have kids memorize what they could just read. Never. Now, in defense of us as teachers, the reason we use sight words is kids can't read anything. In kindergarten and first grade, they haven't been introduced to enough of the code to even read words like her, or the, or she, or how, or boy. I mean, you know, you've got the OY, you've got the ER, you've got the TH, you've got the SH. How are you supposed to read words that contain skills that they're not going to get introduced to until end of first grade or second grade? And that's where the secrets fill in that hole, because the secrets give them access to actually read the word she and her and how and boy and any other word that you could think of, including 2- and 3-syllable words, which means you don't have to memorize 200 sight words. You just read them. Now, for words you wouldn't think you would have to, that you could actually read, like was and want and of, that's an interesting little trick that, again, you'll see. I'm going to mention Tara again, but she came up with a really good kind of mutation of a secret that it's called thinking vowels or head bop trick. And I put the link in the Sunday secrets, but it's a great way to work around those few little those little frustrating words that you still seem to feel like, even if you know the secrets aren't decodable. And it's a great way to kind of build up that word doctor capability and give kids back that power over text, even text that isn't doing what you think it should. And as far as those sight words, the last thing I'm going to say about that is games are great. Sight word activities are great. There's some really creative folks that make some wonderful sight word activities and games. And anytime you're building automaticity, deep in the gut ownership, that's a great thing. You just want to make sure that if kids can read it, you're letting them read it, because that is such a great opportunity to build those skills. Always teaching the reader, not teaching the reading. But having said that, there's a wonderful use for so much of the ways that teachers have kind of come to make these fun practice opportunities to just get faster, get quicker, get stronger with those words that are obviously going to be those high frequency words. Okay, so reading has always been hard for me. I don't understand the code at all. Like, I couldn't tell you why OO makes the sound it does. So what do? I'm a kinder teacher, and I want my kids to be set up as best, I should have had my glasses, as best as they can. I am worried that I'll be a bit blind leading the blind, and I don't understand the code. I didn't either. I was totally the blind leading the blind. That's another thing. And I was telling this to someone else earlier today, and I don't even remember who, but I do. It was a district person, and we were talking about staff, and she was saying that a lot of her teachers felt exactly like you do, in that they want to do what's best for the kids. But, you know, in teacher college, we weren't taught this. We didn't get this. I got a master's in reading. Nobody taught me any phonics at all. I learned one alphabet song from a very nice creative teacher, and even that only gave me one sound for each letter. So nothing. So we weren't given this. We weren't prepared with this. It just wasn't part of the woodwork. The story I was mentioning to her was, I had a superintendent who told me he pulled out a Stevenson book, and Stevenson is a program for reading intervention. It was like a 600-page book. And he said, you see this book? This is a golden book. If you read this, you have a magic pill. You can teach reading with ease. It's incredible, and it will make you a phenomenal teacher. He said, but the problem is, we don't have the ability to have every teacher read this book or become a reading training guru, phonics expert. We don't have that. We've got some teachers that are new, some teachers that are ready to retire. We've got some teachers that, you know, are less sure than others. We've got some teachers with lots of reading expertise if they're, you know, lucky and older and went to school longer than 20 years ago. And then we have some that have never had any exposure, you know, like me at that time. So he said, what we really need is something that makes it easier for everybody, no matter where they are on that learning continuum. So basically, the Secret Stories is kind of like an idiot's guide to just being able to read everything. You don't have to know anything. There's no training class you have to take. There's no week 2, day 3. It's just a way to make something make sense. That's really literally all it is. It explains the bad behaviors of the letters. Letters are like kids. They do a great job behaving when they can't get a hold of each other. You know, when they're up on an alphabet train separated by 2 inches from each other, they do beautifully. Abaka to efaka, they do just what they should, make exactly the sounds they're supposed to. The problems start when they get off the wall and get together and butt up against each other, just like kids, in real words. And when they get together, that's when everything changes, all heck breaks loose, and entirely new sound behaviors emerge. So the secrets just explain why. You know, they explain why is sneaky at the end of a word. You know, wouldn't you be? You know, if you're at the end of a line and no one can see you, wouldn't that be the most likely place you might decide to be sneaky? You're certainly not going to be sneaky and make a sneaky sound when you're at the front of a line. That's when you're going to do exactly what you should and be a good little line leader. Yeah. Yellow, yes, you. Wise always behaved and does just what he should when he's at the front of the line, because that's when he knows everybody's watching. He's only going to be sneaky when he knows no one can see him. Now, that's not something you have to learn in a linguistics class. That comes from a familiar thinking framework, the social emotional domain, the area that drives learners' behavior every single day. And that's really the beauty of the brain sciences. We're not taking an extra step in the dance. We're not practicing some arbitrary story about Sammy and the snake and Farmer Fred, and they got in a boat and they were allergic and they went achoo, and that's why CH says ch. It's not some rigmarole arbitrary thing. You're tapping into what they already have at a deep expert level, which is their social emotional understanding, what makes them tick, the rules they live by in the world of mom and school and peers. You're tapping the behaviors that drive their decision making so that they can use that to make decisions about words they've never laid eyes on before. Best betting odds for Las Vegas when it comes to what sound that Y is going to make. And that's a whole different world than learning the positional sounds of Y phonics rule at the end of second grade, because that's too long to wait. Think of your calendar. You couldn't even read a single word on your calendar. Y says E in July. Y says A is in May. It says, let's see, May, July, by. It can say E, it can say I, it can say A, it can say oi and the word boy. It can pretty much do whatever it wants. And the only way to really start making sense of it and feed the brain as a pattern making machine is to be able to tell them why, to give them meaning. So every secret's structured like that. You just read the secret, tell the kids, and then the picture's there. And you just follow the train as it goes. So I love how you wrote that. And I think that is the biggest point of all, I guess, that I would want to make is there's nothing big to get prepared to start. You don't need to create a big game plan. You just jump in one day and make sense of something that didn't make sense before. And then you do it again. And then you do it again. And you do it every time you need to figure out why you're making the sounds you are in a word you're trying to read. If you have your own kids, think about a bedtime story. You know, if you're a teacher and you're a parent, you probably worked really hard to teach the alphabet to your little one. No sooner did you do that than they saw the word the in their nighttime story and went, ta, ha, ha, ta, ha. And you have to say, no, honey, that's words the. Why? Well, it just is. It just does. You just have to remember. You won't have to say that. Pretty much that can be your trigger. Whenever you're tempted to say, it just is, it just does, you just have to remember, tell a secret. And then that way you don't have to wonder about, well, when do I tell what? You tell what you need to get through the door that is blocking your path to the reading and the writing that you're in the middle of doing at whatever time of the day that is, in the lunchroom, cafeteria, PE room, the bulletin board in the hallway, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, take an opportunity if you need it to make something make sense. So I love that question. And I see some other folks jumping in that already know a lot of the things I'm saying because they're just like, they've been doing this as long as I have and mixing it with their own bag of tricks and tools that they have. So they're great resources. You'll see a lot of them listed here in the comments, and you guys can certainly connect during and after as well, because they're coming up with answers before I'm even getting to some of them. And I promise I won't take up too much of your time. I just want to make sure I get to these since I asked you to please send them. Okay, let's see. So do you have any words of wisdom that I could share with colleagues to encourage them to make that paradigm shift? It's frustrating when I have kids who could be so much further in their learning now if they had been learning with the secrets in kindergarten. I know. It's a, you know, that telling them one secret. I mean, you know, what you could do, and I did it one time when I was a teacher, is I walked into a classroom and I don't know what they were doing. They were doing a shared writing activity, and I just happened to walk in at the time they were doing it, and they were trying to write the word turn or whatever it was. And I think I just went, and then we were saying how, you know, ER, IR, UR love to go driving in cars, but they're terrible, awful, horrible, no good drivers. And they always slam on the brakes and go, and then we wrote that word, and then they were like, oh, like bird, oh, like her, oh, like, you know, corn. So I did that. I walked out. I was there for 29 seconds. And then the teacher came up like the day or so after and said, do you know, they have been coming up with words every single time I write or we see a word that has an ER in it, my whole class goes, arr! So, you know, that's the kind of thing that can maybe break through, because when teachers see that it is twice the gain with half the work. And that's always the case when you teach with the brain in mind, but especially with the code, because the code is so anti-brain. The code is in absolute opposition with the way the brain learns. It is impossible for the brain to do its job as a pattern making machine when you chop the code up and divvy it out across 3 to 4 grade level years. And when there's no logical explanation for why letters do what they do, and they seem to not do it as frequently as they seem to do it. So all of those things together make it impossible for our brain to really get a handle on figuring out what's up, what are my best betting odds here, what's the predictable pattern, because there isn't one. Not when you spread it out and stretch it out so far. So the secrets just bring it back into focus for the brain so that they can take it and start running with it. All you need to do is get them to dip a toe in the water. And then they just get pulled under as if there's a big shark. So, you know, toss out a couple secrets just, you know, in the lunch line or anytime you can just happen to, you know, bop in, because that's what's really gonna spark. Now you mentioned kindergarten, and the thing is secrets are only powered up by those individual letters, and those individual letters are powered up by the secrets, and it's the power of both coming together. What was that old thing, the Wonder Twins, superpower Wonder Twins, and they put their hands together in like the 1970s or some cartoon, and then together they had power, but separately they were just twin brother and sister. Well, that's the thing. So if she's doing letter of the week and not taking advantage of the backdoor access to get all those individual letters and sounds fast, then, it's harder to see the use of a secret, because if I only know A, B, C, D, and E, then having the ER sound isn't going to help words start to come together for me, because I don't have 3/4 of the rest of the alphabet to notice how things come together, and then I can read that word. So, encouraging just that singing of the song. Maybe the music teacher can do it. I mean, I've seen a lot of music teachers do some incredible things with the brain teaser music pieces for the secrets. And you can find all those for free, actually, on the video section of the Secret Stories website. They won't be as helpful for you if kids don't know the secrets, because they will never be able to manipulate at such a rapid pace the twisting, turning, flipping, and flopping of all those sounds like they could if they know the secrets. And the point of those are to just build that automaticity for super fast access. But you can certainly see how they work and play with them. But if you can get those individual letters and sounds through that muscle memory, and that's so important, you've got to accelerate the pace of those individual letters and sounds in order to get kids anywhere in terms of kindergarten, maximizing the instructional density of reading and writing. Otherwise, you're just reading and writing by name only, because they're copying. I mean, it's still reading and writing. I mean, they're copying color words and they're copying things from the board, and that's great exposure. It's wonderful. It's just not experience. And experience is dictated by how deeply you can dive, how fully you can partake in what you're doing. And to fully partake in reading and writing, you need something to read and write with. And the more you bring to the table, the more value you take away. So you're just really pumping up the value that kids are getting from what you're already doing every single day in the classroom. And it should be far less work, far more gain. I would almost venture to say 10 times more gain, 10 times less work. I wouldn't even say twice the gain and half the effort. I would say 10 times the gain and 10 times less effort. And of course that minimizes as you get up into the grade levels where kids have access to the code. But you see the biggest complete upside down shift when you started in pre-K and in kindergarten. Or with struggling upper grade learners, ELL learners, just kids with these gaping holes in skill ability. So reading, okay, I already read that part, and I see some good feedback for a couple of those questions, and I'm going to try to wrap this up. Lots of Wyoming County, yay, Daniel, Mr. Fonzie. I have Charlie in my class. She is very happy for her that her entire name is made up of secret stories. Yay! Think how confused Charlie would be if she thought her name was K-H-R-L-I-E. I mean, there's like, what, 3-4 secrets in her name? And by knowing those secrets, you can read thousands of other words instead of just memorizing Charlie and having the brain accept that as, well, it just is, it just does, I just have to remember. No reason, no method to the madness, no pattern for me to sink my teeth into and then see the connections to other things in my text environment. Just me memorizing and practicing how to write the word Charlie, which seems pretty random if you're trying to make letter sounds that aren't actually any of the sounds they make individually. So to me, it just seems like such common sense, but I know it is an upside down shift for everything we as teachers think about. And we are on this waitress track where we serve things in a particular order as instead of the responsive kind of way that from a brain science end with the brain as a pattern making machine would let us feed it. You know, we don't get a lot of opportunities to feed the brain because our hands are so tied by what we're supposed to do and when we're supposed to do it and how we're supposed to do it. And right now pre-K is like kinder. There is no, kids are being pushed so far, so fast to do so much. And what's happening is, we're really developmentally inappropriate oftentimes with trying to meet those requirements, because we've got little 4- and 5-year-olds who just want to play. They don't want to be strapped to a chair and memorize 3,000 sight words and 26 letter sounds. The kids who need the most use it time get the least typically at home. So use it or lose it is not an ideal route to make these skills stick or to give them access to them. They need, you don't have to practice what just makes sense. So the practice is what we have to do when things don't make sense. So that's what leads us, by not offering this back door to sneak through, we're subjecting kids to what the district's making us do, which are 200 sight words in first grade. And those kids developmentally are just not made to be memorizing sight words. And the kids who are going to be spending the longest time in the chair are the kids who probably are the ones who need to get out of the chair. So you don't want to ever have to practice things if you have a way for kids to just own it. I will say this to one little guy, and I don't know if Renee's on here or not, Renee McNulty, but she said a little guy in her room came up to her last year and said, "I can't turn it off. I can't turn it off." And she said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "The secrets. I can't turn them off." He said, "They're everywhere, and I just keep reading them." He said, I can't turn it off. I used to be able to just look at words or look at letters and I could just look at them. But now every time I see a word, I keep seeing all the secrets and I just keep reading them and I can't turn it off. Now, I love that. I love that. I love it because that's a kid, she's taught the reader, not the reading. He's learned non-consciously whether he wanted to or not. And now he's stuck with the ability to read these sounds in words. He can't just blindly stare at text anymore. And it's interesting that he finds that to be somewhat frustrating, that he's now a reader and there's not a darn thing he can do about it. But that's where you're not going to see the summer slide. Nobody's going to take that away from him because he didn't practice his sight words. He's got an ability to see text and then make sense of it. And that just builds because the practice it's inherent, it's innate. When you can read every billboard you see, every piece of litter on the ground about an old concert that already happened, every sign on the road, you're reading all the time because you can't turn it off. You're now a reader. So to have that, I would love to get teachers to that point where a teacher says, I can't turn it off. I just see secrets everywhere and I just keep teaching them because that's how it should feel. Secrets are everywhere. Now, you don't have to teach them all at the same time, but I mean, they're everywhere. So instead of like, how many minutes a day should I, or how long should it take, or which one should I, you can't turn it off. It's just always there. It's always running. It's always in the background. There's no secret story time. There's no phonics practice time. Everything that's reading and writing is practice time. Everything that you're doing with text is an opportunity to use the keys you need to open those doors that are those locked words. So, you just take advantage of what's already in front of you every single minute of the day and really milk the value out of those so that kids get the maximum from the time that you're spending reading and writing from day one. Okay, I'm sorry. This is gonna be like Gone with the Wind by the time I finally am muzzled. I think at first we overthink this. Yeah. We do. We overthink everything as teachers because we want to do it right and we don't want to screw it up and kids are at stake. You're right. I've done, this is some of the most natural teaching I've done with the secrets. For example, I taught the prank caller PH today and the word Sphinx came up because I was teaching yoga poses. And then morph came up because one student said, yeah, morph is like what the superhero vowels do when they change to their short and lazy sounds. First grade, y'all. Yes, it's exactly right. She had no control over that. She didn't put those words on her lesson plan and think today we're going to talk about Sphinx and morph and prank phone calling PH. That was not on phonics workbook page 14. That's the kind of stuff that makes you want to teach the early grades. We're not teaching in the grade levels that would drive most people running off to an insane asylum because we want to do what's on page 14. We're teaching in kindergarten or pre-K or first grade or second because we love the chaos and the spontaneity and the just out of the blue, the hysterical thing that a kid says or does, or even if they throw up all over your shoe, somehow there's, if you didn't love it, you would be dead by now. You'd be running out the door. Only those that have that kind of a, I don't even know what to call it, that ability to just kind of go with what's happening and enjoy every minute of it. You either would enjoy it or it would kill you. So that's why we're there, and that's what secrets bring back. You're not following a train that you're holding on to with one hand. You're tossing things out on a buffet and enjoying watching kids just dig into them and watching other kids just dip their finger in and taste it. And watching other kids just hold their peanut butter and think about when they might be ready to see what's in that bowl over there. They all know where it is, what it looks like. They can all tell you the sound. When you hold up that E-R-I-R-U-R, they all go, "Arr!" Or when you hold up sneaky Y, they can tell you the whole secret. Now, it doesn't mean that they understand or apply it to the word yet, because all kids have different appetites. And all kids see the kind of the light at the end of the forest at different times. But what you just described, Lisa, is exactly what it's going to look like in every form and fashion it can take for the things you're doing. It's going to follow the course of your daily curriculum or your daily yoga. Whatever it is that your reading series is doing, or your phonics series, or whatever your curriculum is, whatever your scope and sequence is, that is part of what runs your day, those will be the doors you'll encounter, and those will be the keys that you're going to need. And the keys that you need are all there in the form of the secrets. And then kids, because you're feeding and you're teaching the brain in its own way or in its own environment, they're natural pattern making machines. So as soon as they see and take and own something, they're going to see it and take it and use it in every which way. You gave them a key. They're going to take that key and they're going to run with it. But they need the key. We don't want to just memorize the door. We want the key to open that door and 100 other doors just like it. So it's just a mind-boggling shift when you teach with the brain instead of against it, and you really see it with the code. The code's just one piece of what it takes to become a reader, but it's one piece of many. You got fluency, vocabulary, comprehension, so many pieces of the pot that are pieces of the recipe to make it successful. But that one little tiny piece called the code, even though it's one piece of many, it is the one piece that if it's not nailed down and strong, it can wreak havoc with your entire stew. As a matter of fact, your entire dish will be ruined. It will blockade access for you to get to all the other things that are reading, comprehension, fluency, vocabulary. If you can't read the word, you can't really dive into its meaning. You can't laugh at the funny part or empathize with the character. So it's one piece, but it's probably the most difficult piece to tame. And for teachers who know that the first thing we do when we teach is we make something make sense, it's very difficult for us to skip that step. And yet we have to do it every single day. If you're teaching in a grade level where either they haven't gotten access to the parts of the code they need yet, or you're at an upper grade level and there's just no meaning to be given. It just is, it just does. You just have to remember. The secrets are meaning created where there wasn't any. And it all really came about. Einstein has a great quote. If the facts don't fit the theory, change facts. Don't work around facts. Sometimes you can actually just change the facts and then you don't have to work around anything. So if the facts are there's no logical explanation for why letters do what they do, then, well, now there are. So we don't have to work around that fact anymore. Now there's perfectly logical explanations. They're called secrets. The secrets are what letters do when they don't do what they should, when they get together and they misbehave. So now that those things exist, we don't have to work around the fact that they don't. We don't have to memorize our tail off with everything we can see under the sun and just make do without skills that we need to read and write about our pet mouse. Okay. Just talking and talking and talking. I agree. It's amazing how naturally we come across opportunities to introduce and practice secrets. And by practice, I would just use that word reinforce, because again, it's not a separate thing, but it's an ongoing thing. It's like going in your front door. The key you use to get there, you don't necessarily practice using that key, but every day you walk through the front door, you're going to grab the key that opens that front door. So using, just having another tool in your arsenal to bring to the table to write about your pet snake or to read the book about your, favorite ballerina. The kids get so excited when they see them. They see ones that I miss. Yeah, that's what I meant. If you just get a teacher to dip her toe in the water, or if you're a teacher here who has no idea what in the world we're talking about, and you just toss out one little thing that you find on this Facebook page or in any of the blogs on the Secret Stories website, or even just on the Secret Stories website, the first page, you'll see some secrets. Toss out one or two and let the kids start to drive the momentum, because you really are not driving the bus once you start this. They will take over and run, and you're just kind of caught up behind them watching all the thinking that's happening that's paralleling what your curriculum is for the day. Your reading and writing curriculum, your reading series, that's the playground for kids to enjoy their reading and writing muscles, those secret muscles that they have now because there's something to read and write with. So your curriculum will drive your instruction. Your district will be happy because, and that was where that district supervisor was pleased, is your scope and sequence dictates the day. Your programs, your curriculum dictates where you are and what you're doing. The difference is kids don't have to wait for the program to give them access to the code. So if your reading series doesn't give you the pieces of the code you need to read that story, Curious George, like I mentioned in that blog post, it doesn't matter. You're still going to do what your curriculum says, but you're going to give kids access to skills, to secrets that they're not supposed to have for another year or two. So that's where you're breaking down grade level walls, is that you're accelerating their access to the code they need to read and write every single day. And then you're using whatever your scope and sequence is in your reading series to have something to read and write. And you get so much more out of Curious George when you can actually read the words in Curious George, because you don't spend your week memorizing the 17 words that you can't read in Curious George. Okay, let's see. What was your quote? Writing is reading out and reading is writing in. You actually mixed up Jen Jones and my quote and mushed them together, which is kind of creative. Mine was writing is simply reading backwards. Jen's was reading is breathing in and writing is breathing out. And that's, they're kind of two sides of the same coin. Reading, what you put together, you have to take apart. When you're reading a word, you pull the sounds apart to figure out, you put the sounds together to figure out what the word is. When you're writing a word, you have to pull the sounds apart in order to then put them back together to create the word. So the sound to symbol, symbol to sound relationship is what you really are strengthening and building automaticity with. And writing begets reading and reading begets writing. They are exactly practicing the same thing. Writing is a step up because kids not just, if I see the word her, I can go her. I got it. I got the word. If I want to write the word her, her, I have to figure out, and then when I look at the secret poster, I've got 3 choices, an ER, an IR, and a UR, and they're in cars and they're driving, and I can easily tell the sound. I know that it's one of those 3. But as a writer, I have to pick one. And of course, without a lot of text experience under my belt yet, having not seen those words enough as a 5-year-old, it's a crapshoot. So I'll just probably pick any old one, and it could be the ER, the IR, or the UR. What's going to help fine tune which one's actually correct is more reading, which I will be able to do because I know the secrets to read with. The secrets allow kids to actually make sense of text, which means if I can write the word her, I can read the word her. And if I can read the word her, my visual awareness will start to kick in because I'll see her as ER. And I'll kind of have an idea that bird is IR. But I won't know that off the bat because in the beginning, it's a crapshoot. I just know these are the ways I can get and I'm going to pick one. But by doing that, it allows me to engage with that writing, which means I'm actually, I'm connected with that activity, and I'm able to put those sounds together, which makes me more capable to take them apart when I see that same word in a book that I'm reading. So writing begets reading, reading begets writing, both make you stronger at each. I think she's referring to, reading is breathing in and writing is breathing out. She's referring to Jen Jones. And again, Hello Literacy is Jen Jones' tagline to find her on Instagram or on Facebook. Stacey might join. Yes, the kids gave me grief because we didn't get to do the sound collector last Friday. Ooh, sound collector. You'll have to fill me in on that. Okay, and then I see oh, thank you. Oh, and that's free though. Yeah, good, thank you. I see Sarah posted the Zookeeper M&M quizzes in the link right here, so you can see it in the comments. And also do still put it into the search window on the blog, because you can see kids using it. You'll see the same link that's here, but you'll also see some writing that's going to really blow you away, in a weird way, actually, because it'll look bizarrely in like high, but yet with weird glitches in again, like a parallel universe kind of glitch. So you'll also see, if you want to just jump to the writing, you'll see that on the Secret Stories website under the writing tab. But on that blog post with the Zookeeper M&M quizzes, you actually see some kids doing it. And one of the posters here that I saw did a supercalifragilisticexpialidocious M&M quiz with his kindergartners on the last day of school, which I thought was hysterical. And he posted it on Facebook. So I thought that was awesome. And that's how kind of driven kids get to knowing that, like, they can earn, like, what is that, 85,000 M&Ms. So they're not going to stop, and they'll go through the whole day trying to get to the kind of those nooks and crannies of every possible sound they can hear. And it really does kind of, I should have mentioned this with those M&M quizzes. You don't have to use M&Ms every time you're writing. The M&Ms are just to give kids the mindset that, oh, I get it. I'm supposed to give everything I've got when it comes to sounds when I'm writing. It just shifts their perspective so they don't think of writing like we think of texting. But having said that, they also make for a really fun challenge to keep upping the ante with getting kids to really focus in on those phonemes when they're sounding out those words, just hearing the different sounds. And sometimes, of course, it's a secret, or there could be a word like in the word no, K-N-O-W, obviously they might just put N-O-W. So you're really capturing sounds. I say capture as many letters and as many secret sounds as you can. But at the end of the day, you're not looking for them to capture everything. You're just looking for them to be more attuned to what they're actually hearing when they're breaking apart text. Tara, she's in my county with me, I think. Okay, that just must be a conversation. 7 years. Okay, not a question. And Timothy Rosinski says to use lots of poems and songs to build fluency. So my kids have loved finding secrets in the lyrics to Christmas cards, carols, and then reading and singing them this week. Secrets are everywhere. And that poster, Amy Mitchell, there was a post that you'll see with Santa and what she did to get parents on board. And it was just ingenious. It was really, really, really cool. So you'll see that on the Secret Stories Facebook page also. Just look for the Santa Claus thing, not the Santa Claus thing about getting kids to be Santa Claus, because that was just a really neat post that I found, but the one that's a post of her in her classroom, and you'll see it, I think, maybe 4 posts down. My kids took the secrets and highlight them in their decodable readers and love finding them everywhere in the room. That is awesome. That is awesome. And that's obviously a clearly a common sense place to start, because in guided reading, anytime where you're, dealing with text directly, just don't shy away from noticing all those other times throughout the day when you're also surrounded with text, and there's so many opportunities to kind of play with it. And again, you won't really have to worry about it, because kids will be the ones letting you know when that's happening and when there are secrets around. So on that note, I am going to say goodnight. I'm also going to apologize for the fiasco that was supposed to be this live stream and question and answer session. It still was a great question and answer session, at least on my end, because I got to touch base with everybody, but I do apologize that you had to wait a long time to get started and then never got to do what was planned. So hopefully I'll get this all figured out. And anyway, thank you so much for joining. And I hope to see everybody on Sunday at 5, live at 5 for Sunday Secrets. That's when I'm going to try to hit one piece of content, and I'm going to set a timer. And I am going to shut my mouth after 15 minutes, no matter what, and then answer questions for 15 minutes. And if I don't do it, I'm going to come up with a really bad thing that I'm going to have to do, like some exercise that I hate or something, to punish myself for not stopping the talking at 15. So I promise you that will be short and sweet. And there will be a winner picked from the folks that are in this post. So if you didn't comment, please make sure that you do. If you also had shared the link beforehand, that was the other thing that I had asked for you to do. And if you did those two things, then someone will be picked, and it will be posted probably within 10 minutes of me shutting this video down. And then also there is a free link that I'll put in this comment section as well at the end, and that is for a download on TPT, which if you were in the Sunday night, Sunday at 5, you already got, and if you weren't, you can get it tonight. I'm actually going to close it in an hour. I kept it open on purpose so that it was there for tonight, but it will be closed up after about an hour when this post is done. So anyway, thank you so much. And if you have any more questions I didn't get to, you're welcome to leave them in the comments. And I hope to see and hear from lots of you on Sunday. And thank you so much for joining me, and thank you for your patience. So good night, and have a great Friday. It's the end of the week. You're almost there. It's almost the holidays. Good night.